So, welcome to the main cut. I am your host, Jade, and today I am here with celebrity stylist and custom wig maker. We're going to go into that a lot today. Jennifer Hargrove. Jen has done some amazing work, which we'll see and hear more about later, and has worked with the likes of H.E.R, Jordin Sparks, Danielle Olivera, and many, many more. And today we'll be talking to Jen about the ins and outs of wig making, as well as her journey into celebrity hairstyling. Lots of really exciting things to cover today. But Jen, welcome and thank you so much for joining
Thank you
us.
so much. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know things have been super busy on your side, so I'm really glad that we have a chance to chat. But first, it would be great if you could tell us a bit about, your story and your journey as a hairstylist. How did it start and how did you get to where you are now?
Okay, so let's see. I think I can break it down to something short because I feel like it's a very long. I've always kind of had that like I'm still I'm still the new kid around. I'm still learning. I'm still this. And the other day my husband was like, actually, have you thought about how much work you've actually done? It's been a whole I got my license in 2010. So we're
Wow.
going on it's 14 years.
Yeah.
So it sounds now I have to say it out loud. I'm like, wow, that actually has been a while. But so yeah, so I got my license in 2010. I went to Palm Mitchell School. Um, I'm from San Antonio, Texas, and so I started off in a little salon out there. Oh, well, I wouldn't say little. It was a pretty big salon out there, but I was there for a couple of years. But the salon life wasn't for me. So I I always had the dream of like going to New York and being a celebrity hairstylist and doing something of that sort in that area, but I
Mm.
wanted to be in New York. So in 2013, I ended up applying to a job in New York, in Brooklyn, for a celebrity hairstylist. And what was interesting is I was like, there's no way they're gonna hire. They're not even gonna see my work. It's gonna be like it was a celebrity hairstylist, very well known, and I was like, there's no way. They're not even gonna notice me. My cousin and my husband at the time were like, what's the worst that can happen? You apply, send out your resume, they don't look at you, and you're in the same spot that you are now,
Mm.
or you do apply and maybe you end up out there. So I ended up applying. I got the job. Um, Moved to Brooklyn in when this was December of 2013.
Okay.
Yeah, so I remember I applied around it was like July or August, and I was moved up here by December.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it was a very fast thing. Kind of scary. I come from uh, a sort of more what's the word? Tight knit Mexican family.
Mm.
Everyone kind of stays in one place, no one leaves. So it was a very big deal for me to be leaving not only like my house, but
Mm.
moving to essentially across the country, like all
Mm.
the way to the other side of the country. So it was very scary. I ended up moving in with I think it was like 5 or 6 roommates at the time.
Wow.
Crazy. Very interesting first year there. Um, but I loved it. I was working in salon in Brooklyn for a celebrity hairstylist. I ended up being like their color specialist. So I did all the color. The salon that I worked for, the majority of their clientele were women of color, so a lot of
Mhm.
textured hair. I'm Mexican, so I didn't have a lot of experience at the time, but I ended up working for them for about 2 years, and I learned a lot there. The majority of my clientele, and if you can look at my page, like I would say the majority of my clientele are women of color, are women with textured hair. So I've gained a lot of experience in that area. Working there at the time, this was like 2013 till about 2015. During that time, it was wigs were kind of trending again. It was
Right.
becoming like very big to wear wigs, extensions, all that kind of stuff. So I had a lot of women who were coming in for wigs, but they wanted them to be colored. So I essentially was the color for all of the wigs. And then
Right.
that kind of sparked a little bit of interest in wigs for me. I remember at the time I was like, I want to learn how to make wigs. I just don't know where to go for this.
Mm.
Um, and it just so happened that it was one Saturday after a very long, busy day in the salon. We had been invited to a birthday party,
Mm.
um, and I didn't want to go. I was so tired, I didn't want to go. And I remember telling my husband, "No, you go ahead, go. Like I'll be here. I'm too tired." And he was like, "No, please come with me. Please come." So I eventually ended up going to the party with him.
Mm.
Um, and that's actually where I ended up meeting someone who was in the union as a tailor. So she like
Oh.
sewed up, she like would fix clothes and stuff on like film and TV, so like TV shows or movies or whatever. So
Wow.
I ended up speaking to her about that that part of the industry because that was another thing that I was like curious about was working in film and TV. Um, and so she was giving me advice, and I had mentioned how I wanted to learn how to do wigs and all that kind of stuff. And so she was like, you know, I know someone who is a wig maker in the union that I can connect you to. So I was like,
Right.
oh my gosh, yes, please connect me. So then that ended up turning into me meeting this other girl through this friend at a party
Mm.
who then introduced me to this this guy who is a very big wig designer in the Broadway world.
Right.
So I got in contact with him. I ended up going in for an interview. He basically asked me if I had any experience in wigs, and I was like, no, not really, but
Mm.
I consider myself a fast learner. So he was like, okay, well, if we teach you how to build wigs here, we'll teach you for free.
Mm.
And you know, you basically just have to work for us. So I did it and I left the salon. Um, I told him I was like I really didn't want to miss out on this opportunity to learn how to build wigs, so I wanted to
Mm.
leave. Um, I was very grateful to my boss at the salon and everyone there. I, I, I honestly, I don't feel like I'd be here where I am today without them.
Mm.
So I was so happy that I was able to work with them for a couple of years, gained as much experience as I did, and then I wanted to go move on to the wigs. So I left and I started learning how to build wigs for a very big wig designer on Broadway. One of my first things that I got to learn was a mustache.
Oh,
So
really?
we started off, yeah. So we started off by doing mustaches, and once I was fast enough, then we moved on to full beards, and then you know goatees, and I ended up doing one of my first projects was arm hair. I did arm
Oh.
hair, so that was kind of how that started. Then once I actually started getting into wigs, my first wig was a wig for Wicked live.
Oh, amazing.
So so it was no, sorry, not Wicked. It was oh my gosh, I'm blanking out right now. The Wiz Live. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, the Wiz Live. So I don't know if you are familiar with any of the Wiz live show performances. It's basically it's the Wizard of Oz,
Right.
but it's all I think the original one was in the 60s or 70s, and I
Oh.
believe the entire cast was black.
Hmm.
I want to say the entire cast was black. So it was essentially the same thing for this. It was like a remake of the Wiz Live from back then. And
Right.
we had Queen Latifah on here. We had Danielle Brooks on here. I think Neo was on here.
Right.
Uh, who else? Um, I mean, very like A-list celebrities. Like it was an amazing show. So that was a very cool experience for me to be a part of. Um, and then my next big one was Hamilton. I got to build a few wigs for Hamilton for the first production,
Wow.
very first production. So that was really fun too. Um, but yeah, I got into wigs. I was working for them from 2015 till about 2017.
Right.
And then my husband's military.
Mm,
So we ended up having to leave New York because he was being transferred over to DC.
right.
So that that's kind of when I my work kind of slowed down like a whole lot. And I feel like there's still so much more in between that has happened. Um, that I'm like, okay, now I got to think back. During the time that I was also learning how to build wigs, I had a few clients that I've been working with, one of them
Right.
being her.
Amazing.
So I was her color specialist starting, I think this was like 2015, 2014 when I met her.
Hmm.
Um, and so I had been doing her hair for that time. When I left, we still kept in contact, but I wasn't really working with her anymore.
Mm.
But she would reach out to me and we'd keep in contact, and whenever she had any questions, I would answer whatever. It was a very like very still great relationship that we had.
Yeah.
Um, I was we were gone from New York for about 4 years. During this time, I ended up having kids and focused on family and all that kind of stuff. But back after 2020 happened, I think after having my second child, I had gone into, you know, a little bit of postpartum depression.
Mm.
I was missing work. I was still taking projects here and there and I was helping other people out at that time. But I wasn't really working. It was,
Yeah.
and I spent 2 years in DC, but after DC, we had gone back to Texas, which is where I'm originally from.
Right.
He got stationed in Texas. So we ended up being out in Texas during COVID, which was great because I got to be close to family and my best friends, but it was
Yeah.
COVID time. So, we were kind of still stuck at home. I
Yeah.
wasn't seeing everyone often. I was dealing with a little bit of postpartum depression, not really working. So there was a day where I essentially broke down to my husband and I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I want to get back to work. Like,
Mm.
I thought that maybe I could, maybe the stay-at-home mom life might be great. But it got to a point where I was like, actually, I want to work again. So
Mm.
we had a very serious talk, and um, we ended up deciding that it was best to try and move back to New York. So he ended up getting out of active duty military and going guard so that we could move to New York and be here permanently or until we decide we want to leave again.
Yeah.
So we made the move in October of 2021. We left, and I think the day that I had told him that I wanted to leave, I wanted to come back to New York, it might have been like maybe May or August time frame. And so
Hmm.
we were gone by October. It
Oh,
was
wow. Okay.
a very quick move. My daughter was, I think, 4 or 5 months. My baby was 4 or 5 months at the time.
Right.
So we were serious. But one of the things that he had told me at the time, he was like, look, if we're gonna make this decision, like you really need to like be on it out there with work because this is a huge deal. Like I'm getting out of the military, blah blah. This
Mm.
is, so I mean, obviously I was like, duh, like I know. So we did get to New York and I did have this like I was this expectation of like, okay, this first year of moving back is gonna be tough
Hmm.
because it had been like 4 years since we had left. So I was like, I feel like I'm gonna have to essentially start from zero again.
Hmm.
So we moved back in October. Um, I ended up getting the quick little job with the show at the time was Mrs. Doubtfire on
Oh,
Broadway.
cool. Okay.
Yeah. So they had been on and off because of COVID. They were either they opened the show and then COVID was happening, so then they had to close it. And I think they had been on and off for like a few times. And I think this was like one of the last times that they opened. So I ended up getting to work with them a few of the shows. I think it was like maybe a week or so. And that was kind of like my first experience actually working on a Broadway show, not just building the wigs for them. So that was very fun and like very, I don't know if you've been to a Broadway show, but like the changes that they had to do, like the work, I wouldn't say stress, maybe kind of stressful, but it was just like I had never experienced before. It's so fast paced. Like I'm used to fast paced stuff, but this was like we have 30 seconds to pull off a wig and put on another wig and like and to be doing it while they're also getting dressed and makeup and shoes and accessories, like to have like six people on one person, that is like and it literally is like everyone's just kind of like
scrambling.
yeah. So that was really a really fun experience. I don't know if that is necessarily for me. Who knows? If I were to get asked to work a Broadway show again, I probably would say yes. But it was just like, whoa, that was a lot. But a very great experience. It taught me a lot too on just how to put wigs on quickly and how to pin them correctly and all that kind of stuff. So I got that little gig as soon as we moved out here. Then um I had gotten back in contact with her again, and she was talking about, I want to color my hair. Let's try something different, blah blah blah. But she didn't want to put any bleach in her hair. So I was like, well, what I can do for you, I was like, there's no way that we're going to be able to achieve the color that you want without getting bleach in your hair. But what we can do is build you a wig. I can build you a wig. And she was like, yeah, but I just don't want it to be wiggy. And I was like, trust me, like I've like I can make my job as a wig maker, specifically in what I do, is to make it look like you're not wearing a wig.
Yeah.
So I was like, if you give me a shot, just give me one chance, I can show you what I can do. And then, you either want to move forward with it or not. We can figure that out. So she ended up trusting me into building her wig. I got to finally get a mold of her head, built the wig from scratch. And this was, I think, December time frame. So literally only like 3 months into moving back here.
Okay.
I got the wig on her and she was like, what? She was like, what wig? There's no wig here. So it was a very, like, I think that was my first time building a wig of that. Like, I've done little projects for people here and there, but this was so much work put into this wig because her signature look is the long, thick, hair. So it was a lot of hair. I should actually, one day I should weigh her wigs to see how much they weigh because I was like, and the last one that I just did for her, it was even heavier. And I was like, is your head okay? And she was like, no, it's fine. But yeah, she ended up loving the wig, and that was kind of my start of like, now this is going to be my thing. I'm going to start making wigs for celebrities and for artists, and that's kind of where I was like, okay, this could really be something. So yeah, I got my first job doing that, and then I want to say around February, I got a call from an old friend of mine, an actress who I had met through working at the salon in Brooklyn that I had first started working at. She was an actress who I was assisting my boss with at the time. We ended up clicking right away, stayed in contact, and while I was working at the wig shop, the Broadway wig shop, I had invited her one day just to look at the place. I thought as an actress, that would be really cool to see how wigs are made
Yeah.
And because they wear them all the time and you never see like the actual process of it being made. So
Mhm.
I invited her to come take a look at the studio, and that when she came, she was like, Jen, one day when I get my big break, I want you to build my wigs and I want you to style my
Oh.
hair, blah blah blah. And it was one of those, like, one of those conversations that you have that you're like, yeah, it's gonna happen.
Mm.
Don't really know, it's just what you're saying in the moment, like you're saying positive. So anyways, so February of 20, this is 22 now, she gives me a call and she's like, Jen, guess what? And I was like, what? She was like, I got my big break. She was like, I got asked to be number one for a pilot that we're gonna shoot for a major TV network. And I was
Oh.
like, what? And she was like, yeah, and I want you to do the wigs. I want you to work with me. And I was just like, what? So we, I ended up speaking to the producers and the director, and they brought me on to the pilot. So we shot, it was a 2 week film project for the pilot. And um, it was my first time. I ended up building two of her wigs.
Wow.
It was my first time applying the wig. I had never glued down the wig. I was more of just a wig maker, but I am a
Right.
hairstylist first. So like I wasn't scared about doing it. It was just, okay, now I have to figure out how to do it.
Hmm.
So it was my first, it was going to be a learning experience for me. So, and to be the personal hairstylist for number one of this
Mm.
potential TV show was also kind of like, you know, surreal almost, because, and maybe me, I'm like, a lot of the times I'm like, I don't even like, how did this happen? I do, I do get a little bit of, what do they call it? Oh, imposter
Oh,
syndrome.
yeah.
Yes. So I do struggle a little bit with that, where a lot of the times when I do get certain things, I'm like, they're gonna find out that I'm not good enough. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not like, I they're gonna figure me out.
Mm.
So it was one of those things where I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this pilot. I don't I do know what I'm doing, but I kind of don't but I really don't know what I'm doing. So it was very scary for me. Um, but it ended up turning out really great. I learned a lot. Um, she was very happy with the work. The team, the production was very happy with the work,
Oh, that's great.
and we ended up getting picked up for the TV show.
Amazing.
Yeah, so we ended up getting, I believe, at the time when we got picked up, we were given, I think, 15 episodes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and then once we actually got into filming, we ended up having a total of 22 or 23 episodes. I can't remember,
Yeah.
but it was it was a full-on show, and I was working, I think, from August all the way through April of 23. No,
Oh,
yes, 23. Yeah. Yeah. So I got to work on a TV show. And during that time, because I because she brought me on. So here's the thing with union shows, and I don't know if you're familiar with union jobs.
some of it, but it's always great for our listeners to find out more as well. So yeah.
Yeah. So getting into the union, it's it's not easy.
Mm.
It's kind of like a catch 22 where you need union work to join the union, but you can't get union work without being in the union.
Mm.
So you have to figure out ways to go about that. And I had been asking and trying to figure out how to get a union job. And basically you have to get waivers for these types of jobs. And because she was number one, because she was the star of the show, she was
Mm.
able to request like a for me to work with her, and she would basically have them sign a star request waiver, I think is what it's called. I can't
Yeah.
remember. And I think the production ends up having to pay for me to be on the show.
Right.
I think that's how that goes. So once I was on the show for a certain amount of time, after speaking to, the union reps, eventually they're like, you know what, you've done all your time. They essentially invited me into the union. So I
Right.
actually was kind of lucky in the sense because I didn't have to go through the process of like the application, filling out all the paperwork,
Mm.
doing like showing pictures of my work. They had, because I was already on this show for this long, it was essentially like, okay, well, she clearly like she
Mm.
knows what she's doing, that kind of thing. So I got in, but for like for other people too, when it comes to get into the union, you have to, they call it day playing. I don't know if you've heard of day playing.
No, I haven't.
So and this is still, I'm still learning a lot about the union, so don't quote me on this because I don't want to mess it up. But day playing is when you can work on a TV show that maybe they need extra hairstylists, barbers, whatever. And so
Yeah.
they need to hire more for these specific days. And so then people can day play. And I think in that way they are able to get waivers to have these extra hairstylists on these sets. So
Right.
every time you day play, that counts as one day. And I think for our district here at least, you have to have, I believe it's 180 days of
Right.
work. And I think it's over a span of 2 or maybe even 5 years. I can't be, not sure. And so then once you've collected all of these days, then you can apply. Then
Mhm.
you go through the process. You get in,
Right.
you do the interview process. I think you go in and you have to have like a portfolio put together, all this kind of stuff. So it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
So so after doing the show, I essentially was invited into the union, and that's how I got in. So I'm in the union now because of the show.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I got to join the union. So that is has also helped me to have more access to people who do film and TV. That's kind of been how I've been able to get in contact with people and say, hey, I'm a wig maker. If you ever need any wig makers, I'd be available, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
that has helped. Um, this so yeah, so I got that job. The show ended in April of 23,
Mhm.
and then in May, a Hollywood strike happened.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that that was really tough. I had
Mm.
just joined the union and I was like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be great. And we we had no work for months,
Mm.
zero work. So I had no work what seemed like forever.
Mm.
I don't think things started picking up until about December.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, and I don't know if you heard about them, but it was,
It's like 8 months of
yeah. And this is
movies.
literally no TV, no movies, nothing. I think the only thing that was really still running was reality TV because you didn't need to
Okay.
be, it wasn't a union, reality TV isn't, I don't think they're union. I don't believe they're union, but that was like the only thing that was really going during this time. So
Uh,
all of my coworkers, all of my friends that are in this business, actors, like this included actors, producers, directors, writers, um, hairstylists, makeup artists, uh, everything down to even catering. The companies who cater to film and
wow.
TV, none of us had work.
Oh.
And it was tough. I was on unemployment. It was the first time that I had been on unemployment. Um, but but yeah, that was how that first year after joining the union was. But things did start picking up in December of 23. Um, and I started getting projects here and there. So I ended up there's a few projects that I've already built wigs for.
Mm,
I don't know if I'm able to talk about them right now. I don't
that's
know
okay.
how. Yeah, I don't know. They're they're done filming, but they haven't really started talking about them yet.
Okay, yeah,
So,
no, that makes sense.
and it's I wish I could talk about it because I am very proud of these things. Like they're kind of like one of them will be on the big screen. I'm really excited.
Amazing.
The other one is on a Netflix show, uh, season two. So it's a decent. I mean, I feel like it's a very well-known show too. So I'm really excited to talk about these things when I can. Um, yeah, but yeah, I feel like I kind of went on it. I feel like I've talked too much and I don't even know where
Yeah,
I need
man.
to go back to. So
No, like I said, that gives us like a really good idea of like said where you started, how you got to where you are now.
yeah.
Um, and it's amazing to hear like that transition from, and also the travel, because people don't necessarily consider that to break into the industry, sometimes you got to move and
Mhm.
you've got to leave where you are to go to where those opportunities typically live, you know.
Mhm.
And you know, you and your husband made that decision to go back to New York, and that's a massive move,
Right.
especially given, you know, it's not just you two, you've got your family to take with you as well. So that's
Mhm.
it's amazing to see that you've gone from where you were all the way to where you are now. And you've achieved a lot in what probably feels like a short period of time, but is over a decade.
Right.
So,
Right. That's true.
you know, it's well over a decade of work. And what I love is that you make custom wigs for people, and I feel like that's something
Mhm.
that very few people get to kind of like see. A lot of the time you're buying a wig as it is, and maybe it'll be adjusted slightly for somebody, but you know, it'd be great if you could talk us through what that experience of making a custom wig is like.
Right. Yeah. So to start off, when I have someone say you're my actress, right? You're gonna
Mm,
do a movie. Um, the first thing we do is we talk about the look. What's the look going to be? And obviously, this talk would be with the director and the department head, the hairstylist. So once we figure out what we want to do with the wigs, because what I do is I have to when I build wigs for film and TV, we have to be very specific about what we want because the point of the wig is to look like it's their actual hair coming out of their scalp.
yes.
So we talk about color, texture, density, how
Mm,
like who we talk about the character itself, like who is this person? What do they do? Just to kind
mhm.
of imagine what their hair would look like on a daily basis, how it would move, you know, like their age, everything down to their age, you know, their ethnicity, because we really need to understand exactly what this person's hair is supposed to look like naturally.
Yeah.
Um, so we have those conversations. Then the next thing that we do is I we call them head wraps, but I tend to say head molds to every like we say head wraps in like in the hair world or in the wig world. We all
Right.
know them as the molds, but when I speak to people like even you, I've said head mold because I
Yeah.
think that's head wrap is just sounds I don't know. It sounds like maybe you're just wrapping your hair, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's an actual mold. So what we do is we get a mold of the person's head. So we basically will prep their hair as if
Mhm.
they're going to be prepped to get a wig on. So however that's going to be, and everyone's different, depending on what the wig has to look like, how much hair they have.
Mhm.
Um, the prep is always going to be different. So, you know, sometimes we can have their hair wrapped or we have it braided or we have it pin curled or, you know, sometimes there's a bun depending. It all depends. So we'll prep their hair that way. And then we get a plastic bag. Sounds crazy I'm going to say this because it sounds crazy because I'm going to say we're going to put a plastic bag on their head, but don't worry. We leave their nose and their mouth out so they can breathe. We lay the bag on their head and we get tape and we tape the entire head from essentially like the eyebrows down to the ears, down to the neck.
Wow.
So we tape all of that and then we get a permanent marker and you trace out the hairline. Yeah, so we do the hairline trace so we can get an exact replica of what the head shape looks like and where the
Mhm.
hairlines start. Once we do that, we get measurements. We will get a measuring tape, measure everything, and then we can essentially just slice the bubble right off the head.
Right.
And we call it a bubble. When you pull it off, it's it's basically, you can't see it here, but it's a bubble.
Oh, okay.
This piece is actually white because there's stuffing in it, but
Right.
when you pull it off the head, it's a clear bubble.
Yeah.
Then we use that and we find the canvas head that is close to their head size, and
Yeah.
we put the mold onto that. When we tape that on, there's going to be some negative space inside that bubble. So we have to fill it in with stuffing. So what I do is I go in and I cut it a little bit, I make little incisions and I stuff it. And I can
Yeah.
use a comb or a stick or something to kind of move the stuffing around. And then I'll go in and I'll poke holes throughout the thing
Mhm.
and stuff it until it's filled up completely. Once it's done, it's the mold of the person's head. And that's what I would use to build a wig off of.
Right.
Yeah. So once I have that, then I'm good to go. I can start building wigs. Once I've gotten the hair that I've chosen, the texture and all of that, a lot of the times for a wig for film and TV, the hair isn't all just one color unless the specific character requires it to be one color. So
Okay.
in order to look like natural hair, you have to use a mixture of different colors to get a natural color because no
Right.
one's hair is just one
One
color.
color. Yeah.
Unless you've colored your hair one color, nobody's hair is one color.
Right.
Um, so I'll mix the hair to give it a more natural feel. And we'll set that aside. Then I start building the cap. The cap is completely handmade. So I will go in and I have special lace that I use for wig making. And you can kind of think of this as like I'm a fashion designer per se, like a couture wig maker. So like, if you get a couture dress made, they're going to
Yeah.
get all your measurements and everything, and they're going to build everything from scratch to fit you.
Yeah.
And then you do a fitting and all that. Same thing with what I do. I would build the entire cap from scratch to fit your head like a glove. So
Mm.
only you can fit into that. Like that wig is specifically made for you. So then once I've built the cap, then I can start, they call it ventilating, which is
Right.
it's a hook, like a needle that you use with a little tiny hook that
Mhm.
you use to tie in each strand of hair into the lace.
Yeah.
So, so once I start that process, that can take easily anywhere between 80 to 100 hours,
Ooh.
depending,
Wow.
maybe even more, depending on what the project requires. If
Wow.
for instance, if I have someone who wants to have a pixie cut hairstyle or like even buzz, or think of the show Stranger Things. Have
Yeah.
you seen Stranger Things? Okay. 11, how she's got the buzz cut.
Yeah.
I believe the first season she actually shaved her own head, but after the first season she didn't want to shave her head anymore, so they were going to require a wig. So they made a
Wow.
wig. So that buzz cut, you have to do the entire wig one strand knot throughout the entire wig. So I don't know how long that took them to build, but I would imagine that probably took like 200 hours. Like
Oh my gosh.
Because think
Wow.
about it, you have to do like one strand of hair in the entire wig to make it look natural, because cutting it that short, you're gonna see scalp. And if you see scalp, the knots have to be super thin. So
Oh,
it has to be that. So yeah, it can be anywhere from 60, and like I said, to a wig like that, I would say that would probably be like 200 hours.
that's
So
insane.
yeah, it's a very long process. So when people do come to me and they're like, "Hey, I want to learn how to build wigs. Can you teach me?" I'm like, "Do you have the patience first? If you don't have the patience, it's not going to work." Because I remember the first day that I went to learn, I could not figure out how to do the knot. I ended up going to the bathroom and crying. I
Oh,
started crying and I was like, "What did I get myself into?" I just quit my job to learn how to build wigs, and I can't do it. And I remember speaking to the manager, and she was like, "Just go home, go to sleep, come back. You're going to figure it out. It's going to be okay."
yeah,
And I did that, and I came back to the studio the next day, and something just clicked, and I figured out the knot.
right.
So, but
Oh,
it is a very time consuming job, very tedious job. Um, a lot of sitting down, a lot of
mm,
hours spent doing the same motions over and over again.
yeah.
Um, but it for me, it like there are times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I don't want to do this anymore. But when it's finally done and you finally see it on the person,
Yeah.
that's where I'm like, this is this is why I do my job. I love
Yeah.
I love seeing the work done, and I love when people say, "Oh my gosh, that's a wig I didn't even know." And I'm like,
Didn't even
"Yes,
realize.
that's exactly what I want."
Oh, I
when
love
when
that.
people when and it's funny too, because when I've made wigs for her, I've made wigs for Jordin Sparks, and for other when I go to their like their pages on their Instagram, and they make a post with the wig that I made them, and their comments reflect like that they don't know that it's a wig. I'm
Mm,
like, yes, I'm like, I've done my job when people like really don't know
mm.
um that it's a wig.
Oh,
So
that's amazing. And like, at what point did you decide? Because you had to go through the process, like you said, of learning, and that's
mhm.
how like that's the hardest hill to climb, is learning how to do it and learning how to build these wigs, and then get to a point that you've done it a few times. At what point were you like, yeah, this is the path for me?
um you're saying what's the past, like the
At what point did it finally click that you were like, this is definitely the path that I want to go
oh, the
down?
past. Okay. Where I don't know. Honestly, that's
Yeah.
I've never been asked that question. Like, when did you realize?
Mm,
I feel like I think that once I started building, I would say probably once I started building for my own personal clients,
right.
that's when I was like, I'm actually good at this.
Mm,
Like, I'm, this is actually what I really love to do. And, working in the studio and working for somebody, I was just a wig maker. I had
hmm.
zero control of anything but built the wig. So when
Yeah.
they'd give me the project, they'd give me the instructions, and that's what I have to follow. So
Mm,
when I started being like I started having people ask me specifically to have me build them a wig,
mm,
that's when I was like, oh, this could really be my thing. Like I really enjoy doing this. And I think that that's kind of when that might have really started to feel like, okay, I'm a wig maker. Like that is who I am. Whereas before I've always been, like I said earlier, like I always feel like the new kid
Mm.
everywhere. Like I moved around a lot because I was constant. I mean, in a way, I feel like it's the best thing that I could have done because I learned so much.
Yeah.
I got out of my comfort zone a lot throughout this whole process, and um, even calling myself a celebrity hairstylist is also still for me. Like even now, I'm like, I don't know. I'm kind of forcing myself now to like accept that. And I
Hmm.
don't know if that sounds weird, but I kind of like even now I still feel like a baby in the hair world, especially in
Mm.
the celebrity hair world. Um, I still feel like I have a lot to learn. Um, but yeah, I think that's probably around the time that I started to realize, okay, this is my path. This is where I'm gonna go.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I mean, you like you say you've been doing this for over a decade, and yeah, I watched a video of you coloring and styling her natural hair. So I
Hmm.
think this is what I'm not sure how long ago it was, and it looked like she loved it at the end.
Hmm.
So being able to also do things that many other people wouldn't necessarily have the experience to do. You said you started off as a color specialist, then you've gone into wig making. You can color wigs, which I think is probably something that not many people necessarily know how to do because you could damage the hair if you don't do it properly.
Hmm.
Um, so when you've been through and you've had those experiences and had those celebrities turn around and be like, I love this, what have those experiences been like when you've in the moment seen how
Oh my
happy
gosh.
people
They
have
have
been at the end?
been, I wish I could show you a picture because the first time I did hers wig, I was like, can I please take a picture of us with the wig? Because this
Oh,
is my first one. And I look so funny in the picture because I'm so red. I was so happy. I was so happy. I wasn't expecting to take a picture that day, so I was in like a hoodie. My hair was in a braid, I think, or in a ponytail and no makeup on. But I just like I stood next to her with a wig in my hand and I was just like big smile on my face. So like I think that picture could show you exactly how I I was like, don't worry, this picture isn't gonna go anywhere. I just want to be able to see it for myself. Um, but it's such a great feeling, honestly. Like it to to hear them just have them put the wig on and for them to like look in the mirror and to be like, where's the lace? Like what? It's the I don't glue it down. This is like prior to me even gluing anything down.
right.
So it's a really good it's a really good feeling. And what's even greater is sometimes I have to reach out to the hairstylist and say, hey, are is she wearing a wig here? Because I literally can't tell. And
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, girl, that's your wig. Like, and I'm always, even still, I'm still shocked. I still sometimes don't even realize when she's wearing a wig, when she's not wearing a wig.
Mm,
And that's, I think that's also a telltale. Like if you can't even detect it, like,
yeah.
like, cause everyone, as an artist, you will always detect your own flaws, quote
Yeah.
unquote, you're gonna be your biggest, um, you're gonna be the hardest on yourself always.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's how you are, but I know like for me that's how I am. A lot of people that I work with, they're like, no, I can see that. And I'm like, actually you can't see it. It's not very they're like, no, yes I can. That's how I am. I'm the same way too. So it is like it's really, really it's really like exciting when I can't actually tell
Yeah.
where the lace starts and stops and all of that. So yeah, that's how I feel.
That's a sign of an exceptional wig. I feel like that's the one thing that wigs get a bad rep for is when you can
Hmm.
tell it's a wig.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, when people get to a point, it's like, I can't tell the difference. that's a clear sign that a it's been, especially with custom wigs, you're like, that's definitely been designed for that person, for us to
Hmm.
not be able to tell. Because I don't think anybody would have thought that her wore wigs previously, because she's got like really beautiful natural hair. Not that that should stop people from wearing wigs,
Hmm.
but her wigs always look very similar to her hair. So I've never once seen her at an event or on stage or anywhere and thought that
Hmm.
that could be a wig. So now
Yeah.
knowing that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so that it's been
Hmm.
replicated so closely to her hair that,
Yeah.
to the eye, you can't tell the difference.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know if you watched the Olympics, but she performed at
Yeah.
the closing ceremony. That was a wig. So
Oh,
that
okay.
was a full wig that we made, and that was a very lengthy process to build that
Right.
wig, which I'm like I'm so proud of how it turned out. Um, and just to see it on such a huge platform, that is like it's still surreal to me. Like I still can't believe that that's happened. Um,
That's an incredible
yeah.
thing to be able to add to your portfolio. Your
Hmm.
wig has made it all the way to an Olympics.
Yeah, and I didn't put it on her. Her stylist, who is a great friend of mine, she is amazing. Like she makes like not only do I know that I make good wigs, but she really can make my wigs look good. She is so good at what she does. So when she put it on, she sent me pictures. I was just like, oh my God, it looks so beautiful. But that that was probably one of the wigs that had the most hair. I think there was like six packs of hair in that wig.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, it was a lot of hair. That's the wig that I was talking about that I was like, how did it feel? Is your head okay? Because it was a lot. She was like, no, it's fine. It was great. I was like, okay. But yeah, she wore that wig, and I think the wig is like 32 inches long.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
it was a lot of hair. I colored the whole wig. The coloring process took very long because I colored I colored the hair on the wig, and coloring hair extensions is way different from coloring your own hair
Right.
because the extensions, unless it's like actual virgin, like non-colored hair,
Um,
they typically like it's almost like they essentially box dye the hair. And
Interesting.
if you know anything about box hair dye, that's
Yeah.
a huge no-no in the hair world. Like we
Yeah.
hairstylists hate box dye. Like hair colors hate it because it's so hard to remove.
Right.
So imagine having to color 32 inches
Oh my
of
gosh.
dark brown hair to get it to the color that she had it for the
Ooh.
Olympics. Yeah,
Wow.
lots of hours. It could have been the death of me. That's how much time spent. There was some crying that probably happened. I probably got into the fetal position a couple times, like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? But it came out great.
Oh, it was amazing. And what's the longest you've ever spent on one wig?
I would say, I think the longest I've spent on a wig is probably like 80 hours. But this wig that for the Olympics set, I didn't time myself on that one because I ended up having the wig in my hands for a couple of months. So we kind of
Right.
like went back and forth on like what the final color should be,
Right.
how much hair should be in it, all that kind of stuff. So and she travels back and forth. So I held on to the wig quite a bit
Mm.
too. So I don't know exactly how long I spent on it, but I could imagine this was way more than 80 hours because
Wow.
I not only had to build the cap, sew everything together, but I also had to color, and coloring the hair had to have been a total of like 20 hours at least. Yeah,
Wow.
it was a lot. But that's
God.
just on coloring the hair. I can imagine that building it was probably another 80 hours. So yeah, it was a long time.
I mean, it's a testament to, like you said,
Hmm.
patience is a virtue when it comes to wig making. For any of the stylists that are listening to this and they're interested in wig making, just bear that in mind. Um,
Yeah.
you could be spending 80 to 100 hours per wig. But actually saying that, how can other stylists that are interested in wig making like start
Hmm.
making their way into that part of the field?
Um, well, I feel like I want to give a shout out to one of my close friends she's the one who taught me how to build wigs. She actually has online classes that she does, and
Oh,
she does in person. She lives in Atlanta, Georgia, but she
right.
does virtual training as well.
Okay.
And her name is Gretchen, spelled Gretchen.
Yeah.
I'll send you her link so you can have that
Yeah,
if you
well,
want to share that.
we'll add it to the newsletter version, so anybody who's interested, there'll be a link and you can take a look at the classes there.
Hmm. Her company is I Make Wigs, and she's got her website and everything, and she's a great teacher. She taught me how to do what I do, and I mean I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her either. Like there's no way I would be a good wig maker if it weren't for her. So shout out to Gretchen. Um, that's a good start for there. But if they wanted to learn aside from, taking online courses, I don't think there's such thing as doing like kind of self-taught like YouTube videos. I personally
Mm,
I've gone on YouTube and I've tried to see what I could find out there.
hmm.
And there is some basic stuff, some basic training on how to tie a knot.
Right.
But if you really want to get into like the small details that actually do matter, like
Hmm.
direction, how much hair, how big of a
Hmm.
knot, like specifically because there's all sorts of knots that we do when it comes to building a wig, depending on where it is on the head, what the wig calls for. There's different types of
Okay.
knots. Like I really would push, like, go to Gretchen. Gretchen really, like, she knows all of those little details that are going to make your wig stand out.
Hmm.
And by stand out, I mean actually, not. But what I'm saying is like those little things that she teaches are the
Hmm.
things that make the wig look so natural.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Mm.
So if I were a hairstylist starting off, I would just try and do my research and finding wig makers locally who
Right.
can teach you. I know that theater is also big in, I believe, London as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Very.
don't know. Yeah, I'm in a Facebook group with wig makers from all over the world. So even if someone wanted to reach out to me and say, "Hey, I'm in wherever they are, do you know of anyone who's out here?" I can easily go to my Facebook group and say, "Hey guys, is there anywhere in this location that is willing to
Yeah.
teach?" And maybe that's a way that I can connect them. So I can do
Yeah.
that. So if anyone is, say, in London or wherever, they like, "Hey Jen, do you know anyone?" They can reach out to me and I can help them that way.
That would be amazing. And we'll also like leave a mention for that for those that are interested in learning more. We'll have a link to like Jen's Instagram as well, so you can drop her a line if you're interested in finding somebody that's close by that can teach you a bit more. Because it's
Hmm.
definitely a skill. Um, and it's a difficult one to hone and a craft, but once you've got it and you know how to, it's like again, it's just having the time and the patience to really give it the attention that it deserves to make sure, like you said, it doesn't
Right.
look like a wig.
Exactly. Yeah. No, just don't give up. Try not to give up. I would say, give it a full month before you make a decision
Right.
to not. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And what is the most important lesson you've learned so far in your career?
In my career in total or in wig making?
Oh, in
Maybe
total,
wig making
because
in
you've
total.
learned plenty.
I think I think my biggest lesson, and I'm currently learning it right now. I'm just now like saying, okay, Jen, you have to be this, is speaking up for yourself.
Mm,
I think that has been my biggest thing, my biggest challenge is advocating for yourself and
mm,
knowing your value. And, sometimes you do kind of have to put your foot down on certain things. And it's scary. I've always been so scared to like, say, I can't do this, or this is what I charge, or this is how I do this. This
mm,
is what I need. That has always been very, very hard for me because I'm always scared that I'm gonna, either ruin a relationship or lose business that way. And I'm just now realizing like, oh, it is okay to speak up for yourself. Things do actually like can happen the way you need them to happen if you
mm.
speak up because you're never gonna get, and I mean not never, but unless you ask, no one's gonna know what you need.
Yeah.
In this industry, I am realizing that everyone is, in a sense, they're there for themselves.
Mm,
And I've always been like, I want to help everyone out. I want to be good and this and that. And I tend, like, just from even from a young age, I've always tend to be kind of let down
mm,
in that sense where I'm like, well, I'm helping you out. Like I thought that maybe you would help me out too at some point, and it
mm,
doesn't work out that way. Um, so I'm still that person. I'm still very much a helpful person. I
mm,
love, even if it has nothing to do with hair, like if you need help with something, I can help you with it. Um, but I've come to terms with, don't expect anything from anyone. If you
mm.
need something, you need to say it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like if you need something to happen, you need to say it. Or if you have certain boundaries, you need to set those boundaries and be
Mm,
firm with them.
yeah.
So that is my biggest, I think, my biggest lesson learned. And this goes for anyone. I think any industry, any relationship, anything.
Hmm.
It's very important for you to speak up for yourself and to say what you want.
100%. And that's really good advice. Also something for, like you say, all stylists to bear in mind. Both stylists and customers, stylists need to feel comfortable saying that regardless of who they're working with. And even customers need to feel comfortable with saying, actually, I'd like to, there's so many that feel worried about stepping on stylists' toes if they say something in the middle of getting their hair
Mhm.
done. And it's really important that people speak up about the questions that they have, or,
Oh
if it's
yeah.
like, oh, actually, I prefer it if this was styled in a slightly different way,
Hmm.
it's important to have that confidence to be able to say that. Because, like you say, if you don't ask, then you will never know.
Right. Right. Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, finally, an hour has gone by very quickly. But our last question is, I know that you have been super busy over the past few months with different projects, some of them that you can't speak about, but I can only imagine that there's kind of plenty of more that will be coming up or are coming up. So, what's next for you?
So I've been working with Jordin Sparks a lot recently. She's my favorite person. I love her so much. She is just the coolest girl. Like, and when I say coolest, she's just so like, when you can just be yourself around someone,
Hmm.
that's that's how I feel with her. She's got that very like almost like comforting energy. Like I feel like in this industry, a lot of people are very much like, you have to look a certain way. You have to talk a certain way. You have to be like cool. Like it's just, and I've never been like that. I I've always kind of felt like sort of like the outcast. in a lot of different things that I've done. But, and even being with her, like I feel like I'm lucky to have the clients that I have because I've been able to be myself. I don't feel like I have to like be something more than what I am in order for them to like me. But Jordin Sparks specifically, we've been working a lot. We have a show coming out in, I want to say October, called Roller Jam. It's a roller skating dance competition. It's going to come out on Max, so it'll stream on Max. We are so excited about this one because she is the host for the show.
Right.
And the show is every competition day is a different theme. So every week is a different theme.
Right.
And they've gone with decades. So every week is a different decade. So this was a lot of fun for all of us, for me, the makeup artist, and for Jordin, because we got to have fun. It was like every decade every week or every day that we shot, it was a complete different decade. So we have looks from Donna Summer to like, what did we do? Almost like sort of like a Bridget Bardot type of, like, it was, I think we started in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and today, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a 60s look, a 70s look, an 80s look, 90s look, to 2000s. I think in the 2000s we used butterfly clips. I don't know if you ever used those in the early 2000s when you're using butterfly clips. We used butterfly clips, and we use wigs and extensions and different things every single day. So everyone will be able to see all the different looks that we did. And it was a lot of fun. I think from what Jordin had told us, this was kind of like the first time in a while where she actually gets to do something like completely different every day, and not necessarily her. It was, it was fun. So it was a lot of fun. The competition was very fun to watch. I'm really excited for everyone to see this because I think this is the first roller skating dance competition that we have.
Oh, okay.
I don't think, at least in the US, I don't think we've had a show like
they
that
definitely
before.
Don't have anything that colorful in the UK yet. I'm sure
No, and the winners win, I think it's like 150K or like 100K. That was the grand prize. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's coming up in October. We'll start seeing promo stuff here soon. And then there is, and I don't know when this is going to be released, this podcast, but on September 13th, she is releasing her new album.
Oh,
so on
amazing.
Friday, she'll be releasing her new album. So everyone has to check it out. Album's really, really good. A lot of different types of music and fun. It's just the energy on this album is really, really great. She's got a little bit of R&B, a little bit of pop. She does a little bit of rap, which is kind of cool. So everyone, stay tuned because Friday the album's gonna come out and it's gonna be great.
Oh, I love that. And it's amazing to see like the variety of the different people and the different spaces that you've worked in. And there's definitely things for everybody to look out for. So definitely look out for the show. I'm sure there are already people that know the album's coming and they'll keep their eye out for that. But it's been really amazing to just hear your journey, like I said, where you started and how you got to where you are now, Jen. It's been like really lovely learning from you. So thank you so much for sharing everything.
No, thank you for having me.
No, it's been amazing. And for anybody who has made it all the way to the end, thank you for listening. And if you know anybody who could benefit from hearing this conversation, please share it, share, And like I said, anything that Jen has mentioned will be in the links in the newsletter. So you will have access to anything that's cropped up. Other than that, again, thank you to everybody who's listened so far, and we will catch you on the next episode.